Shabbat Shalom, my friends, and now we can add Chag Samayach as well, because on Sunday evening, October 9th, we will begin observing the joyous festival of Sukkot, an outdoor festival. We can also toss in a final Chatima Tova, a final have a good sealing, S-E-A-L, sealing, because Jewish tradition flexes a little bit as to when the gates of judgment actually are closed. Some of our teachers believe that those gates don't really close until the seventh day of Sukkot, an observance, a day that is called Hoshana Rabbah, which this year falls on October 16th. So we have until October 16th. Before that, in the Elah, God's decisions are made, but until October 16th, Hoshana Rabbah, whatever, they don't really start being acted upon. So the wise among us will take advantage of these few extra days so as to clear our path toward a good new year. Our Sedra is Ha-Azinu. Deuteronomy chapter 32, beginning with verse 1. Ha-Azinu. Moses closes out his 40-year leadership of the Israelites by delivering a magnificent poem. A poem second in beauty only to the Song of the Sea, Exodus chapter 15, and its quality also ranks with the Song of Deborah found in the book of Judges. These are three great poems. This poem is set out in the Torah scroll in a highly visible 70-line creation. When you look at it, you get to the Torah scroll, you know you are at Ha-Azinu. That high visibility, I must share a private thing here, is a beloved trait for those of us who have to move through the scroll quickly so as to find the passages we seek. You can't miss the Song of the Sea. You can't miss Ha-Azinu. Pops right out. The literary genius behind this poem has crafted passages that are read during life cycle ceremonies, such as a funeral. You encounter the phrase, Hatsur Tamim Pa'alo, God is the rock whose deeds are perfect. Or in various Jewish theological works, for example, the phrase, Yitzrenu ki ishon eino, Israel is the apple of God's eye. You can understand many books written about that. But that same literary genius created a tapestry that is far more complicated and perhaps far more troubling than most casual observers might imagine. This complexity actually points to a late origin for this text, unlike the Song of the Sea, where the language of that poem points to a very early origin. Now, without pursuing the matter, Rabbi Shai held notes about our Sedra. In the span of just 43 verses, God is referred to as a rock, a warrior, an eagle, a father, a mother, a provider, an executioner, and a healer. Now, Held seems comfortable with that proliferation of images. But how does that overload of metaphor and poetic images occur? How does that happen? Nowadays, authors who are prone to use multiple metaphors are often subjected to brutal editing. They are told to limit the number of metaphors, to consolidate their metaphors, and most of all to make certain that their metaphors, same passages, same section, don't contradict each other. That kind of editing was never applied to our Sedra. The word flow is beautiful. That's certainly true. And the word flow is suggestive, offering the reader a multiplicity of directions in which to turn. And I would suggest that wittingly or unwittingly, the choice of metaphors and images here is far more revealing than the original author might have intended. That author wants us to understand God. And they pursue their task by finding words that describe how they have encountered God throughout history. In other words, the author extrapolates from what they understand God's actions to have been and then creates beautiful pictures of the divine. So when is God a dependable rock? Easy. When things are going well for us, when we live secure lives, when nature seems to be under control, when life seems dependable and positive. God's a rock. God is the rock that makes all of this possible. Okay. When is God a warrior? When we win. When the enemy flees before us. When we have regained our land and strengthened our security. God is a warrior. When is God an eagle? When we ourselves are lifted up out of the various wildernesses into which life has thrust us, and we are carried securely to the land of our promise on eagle's wings. We can now apply the same template to the images, when is God a father? When is God a mother? When is God a healer? And when is God an executioner? I'm reminded of the passage in Exodus chapter 33, verses 12 and following, very famous, not that I remember these things, when Moses asked God to show him the divine presence. And God responds by saying, no one, not even Moses, can see God's face. But Moses, here it comes, will be allowed to see God's back. The rabbis take a deep dive here. What is the possible meaning of being able to see God's back? The majority answer seems to be, here it comes, the only way that one can really know God is by observing God's acts. Popular position. But wait a minute. Where does that answer leave us? How can we separate out the sources of so many events in our world and assign just certain ones? That one, not that one, that one, not that one. Certain ones, assign them to God. Which acts are God's acts? Those acts that benefit our people? Those acts which bring abundant harvests, gentle and dependable rains, comfortable evening breezes during a hot summer day. The American insurance industry is revealed once again during the disaster wrought by Hurricane Ian, restricts acts of God to certain kinds of disasters. I have never found the theology of that industry very appealing, but that's just me. Where does all of this leave us as we struggle to see beneath the beauty of our Sedra? It seems to me that the very abundance of metaphors testifies to our profound lack of knowledge of the God whom we worship. God is perfect, except when we encounter imperfection in our world. God is just, except when injustice holds the winning hand. God is a father, or maybe a mother, or maybe both, depending upon whether we are experiencing a stern father or a nurturing mother. God is loving, especially when we witness bloody vengeance exacted upon our enemies. Loves us, not so much them. God is all of that or even more as we place into our understanding of God all that we need in order to bring coherence and dependability to our existence. We describe God by virtue of what we need. Our descriptions of God are directly related to the reality of our lives. The back of God that we are privileged to see is made up of all that we experience as we attempt to bring coherence and meaning to our world. We can experience a sense of aloneness, or a sense of fulfillment, or a sense of awe, or a sense of despair, and create beautiful metaphors that appear to actually describe God. But we can't actually describe God. That knowledge was denied to Moses and is forever denied to us. So what can we do is we can take metaphors and attempt to weave a world that makes sense to us. That's all that we can do. Take metaphors, weave a world that makes sense to us. Every day, by the decisions we make, by the actions we undertake, we bring more detail to our own portrait of God. And that, I believe, is a sacred act. A lot to think about when you're reading a beautiful poem. That's it. See you next week. Chag Samayach. Delete some of those extra metaphors. Have a great week.